All right. I'm super stoked to be here this morning. I've been knee deep in a project, everybody, that has required me to sit by myself for long periods of time thinking about why are we doing what we're doing here at Mighty Networks. And I got to tell you, I am more excited about what we're doing together in the Community Design Masterclass and can see a picture of the world as you all are having more and more successful communities and networks that I am really excited about. The other thing that has happened recently, and good morning, welcome to week 3 of our Community Design Masterclass. The other thing that is super exciting right now is we are seeing graduates of our Community Design Masterclass creating and launching and growing some of our most successful Mighty Networks right now. And so I was just looking at the numbers over the weekend and holy guacamole, like this stuff works. So I just wanted to say that out loud. I am so happy to have you here. Marcia and Hugo and Michelle and Robert and Andrea, Chris, Ted, Jeremy, Annalisa, Cindy, also Saeed. You are exactly right. Erin should not be feeling guilty about not doing her homework because this is supposed to be done at your own pace. It's okay. It is all here whenever you can get to it. And that is why we record. That is why we have all of these resources. It's why we keep the masterclass open to each and every one of you forevers. And it all works. So with that, let us go ahead and dive in because I love this week because we are going to talk about something really, really effective. And this is our like practical week. So with that, let me go ahead and just capture what we are going to do today. We are going to just recap your year in the life. Definitely want to hear from you what that experience was like. It sounds like we're already getting some good feedback on that in the chat right now. And we will talk about that. Then we're going to introduce the weekly calendar. And I love the weekly calendar. And I'm not exaggerating. You might think, like, why does this woman love a weekly calendar? Because it makes everything so much easier. It's going to reduce anxiety and increase the probability that you're going to have something super awesome to be able to offer your members. We're going to talk through then daily actions, which are really daily polls and questions. And then you're going to ask an inevitable question. I think inevitable is the right word there. An inevitable question, and I'm going to give you an answer. And then lastly, we are going to introduce this week's challenge, which will have a lot to do with your weekly calendar and your daily actions. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. How did it go? How did this week go insofar as identifying your 3 top priorities, laying out and brainstorming 25 monthly themes, and then lastly, putting those monthly themes in this template? How did it go? Anybody? So Cindy writes, great. Thank you, Cindy, for not leaving me hanging there. In the works, got some clarity from Annie. Fantastic. It was a great exercise. I'm going to go backwards, actually. Learned a lot from fellow class members. Ted, that's so great to hear. Robert, this is awesome. I love this because it means that the process is working. I realized I have a ton of topic content. Monthly themes and the fact that you can, once you get into that zone, and how many people just even raise your hand, once you kind of got into that mode of thinking about what could be a monthly theme, it starts to sort of flow. And that's really why we love the brainstorming. Let's see. Cindy writes, my only problem now is I can't sleep because I now have so many ideas. I know that feeling. I live with it often. That is super, super awesome. Michelle also had a big brain dump last night. That's exactly what we're trying to get. We're trying to just get your brain in that mode. And then you see it and you're like, wow, I already just wrote down a bunch of stuff here. And what happens especially, and I've even seen it amongst a small handful of folks, in our masterclass, which is you overthink things and you let the anxiety or the fear or, oh my gosh, am I going to have anything to talk about? Are people too busy for, and you replace all of that with brainstorming, idea generation, and really just putting things together that says at the very beginning, okay, I can do this. Let's see, Karen, I still need to do it, but I think it will be great and exciting. I happen to agree with you, Karen. That is awesome. This is great. Marcia writes, fantastic. Turns out my monthly themes can address my community's biggest pain points. You're seeing these different elements come together, Marcia, where there's a reason why we do your big purpose, your story, your ideal member, and encourage you to do those interviews, because then when you get to your year in the life, when you get to your monthly themes, you can tie those back to what are the things that your members want, as well as what they're struggling with and what's getting in the way of them achieving the results and transformation that they want right now. All right, let's see. Hugo, I'm still struggling with the content and the fees to charge. Okay, I love that the content is great, but I don't know how to communicate so that they see the value and pay for it, or maybe I just need to give a preview for free. Hugo, trust the process. We will get to those things next week and the week after. Right now, I want you to stay just right here in the present for how to structure your community so that it runs itself in the highest value way possible. So if you are following these pieces, if you're trusting the process and taking these steps in this order, you will get to those answers or get closer to those answers and give yourself a means by which you can play a detective and ultimately get yourself there. Let's see. Michelle, I like writing without inhibitions. When I sleep and look at it with fresh eyes, it really helps. I love that. That is so, so, so important. And it's the exact same thing I definitely find. Like, I'm an early bird, but the more that I can do brainstorming, up until roughly around when I go to bed, sleep on it and come back to it the next morning, it's amazing the kind of connections that our brains can make. All right. Well, it sounds like this was the success I was hoping that it would be. And Karen, I'll end with your comment. I did spend some time talking to ideal members and feel my value as I do these. I still have more to do this week. You're going to have stuff to do every week. So that's fantastic. You did just exactly what you were supposed to do. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And let us dive in to your weekly calendar. Okay, so now we have your big purpose, you've got your ideal member, you've got your year in the life, the results and transformation that you want for your members and for you, working backwards into monthly themes that you're going to be able to lay out for your community. Now we're going to go into the last two pieces of community design. And my favorite is your weekly calendar. And here's why. Your weekly calendar is going to be the reason that you and your members are going to come back and engage with your community. Why? Because it builds a habit. And you want to build a habit around your community. And so this is going to be a really important reframe, because I've got to believe, even just if you guys are anything like anybody else that has been through community design, there's a part of you that are like, oh my God, I need to have something every single day, and it needs to be like all this content, and I need to be producing all of this stuff, blah, 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 blah. What I want to encourage or to propose as a reframe is that what's in your weekly calendar is less about number of days that you are doing things. And again, it may sound like I'm going to contradict myself when we get to daily actions, but just stick with me. It's more about sticking to a weekly calendar consistently. So the way that we build habits as people is typically over about 30 days. So if we do the same things week in, week out, over 30 days, they become a habit. We want our communities to become a habit. I want your community to become a habit for your members. So the way that we're going to do that is with a weekly calendar. And a weekly calendar is going to generate or highlight contributions. So it's going to be about what your members are doing with each other, or the result, or the contributions, the stories, the experiences. Again, not advice, stories and experiences and ideas that they are contributing in the same way that you are contributing them over in the comment section here in Crowdcast in this live topic session. That if you notice, we do at the same time every week. That's our weekly calendar. So we have a weekly calendar here in Community Design that is Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, a topic session. Thursdays from 9 to 10, and then from 4 to 5 p.m., that is our office hours. Wednesday mornings, we drop a new host interview. And then every week, we have a weekly challenge. We do it for 5 weeks. We could do it for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. We could keep going, because what we're building right now is a habit through the weekly calendar of the same things on the same day at the same time that people, even if they're not in the community, can get used to. So because of this, you want to just aim for a minimum of 2 things, max of 4. You get no extra credit for doing 7 days of activities. You do not necessarily need a weekly calendar with 7 days. And it may feel like that's how you get an A+ in the Community Design Masterclass. First of all, we don't give grades. Second of all, you don't get you don't get an A for doing more things. You get an A for sticking to 2 things consistently for 4 weeks. That's the point of the weekly calendar. And so you can imagine in this context that if you are building a weekly calendar, you want to start narrow. Just do 2 things: Tuesday 9 a.m., Thursday 9 a.m. That's it. And by the way, it doesn't have to be an event. So don't think that that's we'll give you in a moment. I just realized that like someone's going to basically be like, wait, I can only do a weekly calendar with events. No, your weekly calendar is just setting the same editorial article or type of article, the same kind of activity, or this type of event. The key is that you're doing it on the same days at the same times, and you're doing it consistently for at least 4 weeks. And then once you do that, you can expand to more days if you want, but you don't have to. Okay. So here are just a small handful of weekly calendar ideas that are really effective and easy to do. Some are easier than others, to be fair, and that give you a good sense of what we mean by a weekly calendar activity or event. So, new member introductions and highlights. This might be an article in your Mighty Network or in a post in any community you might have that highlights and tells a little blurb about the new members who have joined, or highlights from members from that week. The thing about people is they love other people. They love reading about other people. They love updates about other people. And so taking advantage of that with new member introductions and highlights, super, super easy to do. A skill or lesson of the week, very similar to our topic session. And that can work for either a paid community or a free community or a paid course. And we'll talk about courses and programs next week when we tackle structuring your Mighty Network and pricing. A question of the week. This one's pretty easy. You can use one of the different kinds of polls and prompts that we have. And it could be sort of the main theme. It's like a big question of the week. The weekly challenge. You guys are living a weekly challenge here in the Community Design Masterclass. You can set up a weekly challenge for your community as well. Office hours or a weekly video call, super popular. Why? Because it's easy to do. You just have to show up and have the conversation. And the thing about, conversations versus writing articles or producing more content, conversations are really natural. Like even if you're an introvert, you can actually just have the time fly by in a way that sometimes if you have to sit down and write a whole article or blog post, it just takes a lot longer. So we love office hours or a weekly video call, and also people really enjoy them because it's a lot like who else is here, and it's the interactions that your members are having with each other that really matter. a book discussion day, or here's a way to do it. So instead of thinking about you're going to read a book every week, because the week is really critical. It's really, really critical that it's a weekly event. The weekly is the right cadence, in the same way that with a theme, the month is the right cadence. So book discussion day, what you would do is essentially have a book that would be potentially a monthly theme or a monthly book, that you break it into weekly book discussions. Another thing you could do is related to your monthly theme. You could have 4 TED Talks or 4 podcast episodes to listen to. And then you can have a discussion about those. And those book discussions or podcast discussions or article discussions or TED Talk discussions could be done either in this kind of a video event or something on Zoom, or you could do it through a text chat or in an article with the conversation happening in the comments section. Give, ask, love give, ask. Now, here's all it is. And we even have a template for it that we will share with you in the masterclass. The whole point of the give, ask is, as a member, here's what I have to give to the other members of the community, and here's what I need or I'm looking for from the other members of the community. Everybody's got something. And the way that we propose and recommend doing it is that you can take, let's say on Wednesdays are your give, ask days. And every Wednesday you could promote or highlight, or showcase is probably the best word. You can highlight a member, so you can profile a member with what they have to give and what they have as their ask, and then you have a call to action at the bottom of that article with, and add your give and ask in the comments below, in the conversation below. So you basically can do that every week. And what's so cool is that every week new people may contribute. Also, every week you're in a situation where you can your gives and asks are going to change, which is pretty darn cool. Community roundups is another really fantastic. There's 2 ways of doing this type of weekly event or weekly calendar event. One is, highlighting the answers to the question of the week. People have done that, other hosts have done that really successfully, or highlights across the activity in your Mighty Network. One, as you can imagine, is a little bit easier, the question. One is a little bit harder in terms of highlights across the community, but both can be a really nice way of connecting people to the community, even if they have been away for the week or they're busy or things are going on. And what you want to use, and I'm going to get to member profile stories in a moment, but one thing on all of these is you want to use the notify all feature for your weekly calendar. And the reason you want to notify all is, even if a member is not coming back and is not engaging, just having that notification in their inbox or in their push notifications reminds them that your community exists. So you are actually, by every Tuesday morning, notifying your members that that week's activity or that weekly calendar activity has happened or is happening. You are top of mind for them. A weekly calendar gives you a reason to reach back out to people in a consistent way, that even if they're just checking their notifications, it's consistent, and eventually they come in, or they're participating with you being top of mind or your community being top of mind, even for that split second when they're checking their email or looking at their push notifications. And you are not spamming them by doing this. And this is also why I start with 2 days, max of 4. So member profile stories are the last example. And again, there are more weekly calendar ideas that you can do and come up with on your own. But if you are looking at these and you're like, oh, I like that idea, use it. If you're like, I don't have any other ideas, great, use one of these. Or I should say, use 2 of these. And so the last one is member profile stories. And we came up with member profile stories when we were launching that small business community that I talked about. I think I talked about it last week. And here's where we started. We didn't have any members. We literally had no members. So we were like, okay, well, we should probably get ourselves some members. And so what we did is we said, well, what about if we create just a simple Q&A? We ask people that small business owners that we respect or we think have really creative businesses, why don't we ask them to just get on the phone with us? We'll record the conversation. We'll turn it into a quick profile story that in that case, we started with just this idea of like, could we capture how they got their awesome job? That's all we want to do. We just want to capture how they got their awesome job. When did they know it was going to work? When and who inspired them? What does a day in the life look like? And then give us some photos, not like your headshot, but like action shots of you as a human being. These were incredibly successful. Now, they didn't drive a lot of contributions. People weren't in the comment section of these member profile stories, adding comments or observations. Again, it was that goes back to a little bit what we talked about in week 1 of like, hey guys, what do you think about this? But they read them, and they read them to the tune of 3, in some cases 7, and in one story specifically that was pretty long, 10 minutes. They were spending 10 minutes reading that story. And what were these stories doing? They were giving people a good sense of who were the ideal members of this community. So a member profile story, especially if you're starting from scratch, even if you have a following and you're starting your community from scratch, you basically can take advantage of these articles to communicate to people and model to people, you are in the right place if you are inspired by this story or you are similar to the people that we are profiling. And that's how this works. Melissa asked the question, how do you know people are reading them? We took advantage of Google Analytics in that case, which you can integrate into your Mighty Network. And then we will also be revamping analytics here in your Mighty Network directly shortly to also take advantage of time spent on articles as well. All right. So here are a few examples of other really successful networks and how they use their weekly calendar. So Tiffany Stahl runs something called the Artist Courtyard, which is a legal library for creatives. And on Mondays, she has community updates. On Thursdays, does a Q&A chat just like this over Crowdcast. So she's essentially talking and going through questions here. And Fridays does a Zoom call for problem solving, workshopping, and brainstorming. And that looks a lot like what we do really effectively and really successfully. And you guys have seen it with the way that we run in the Community Design Masterclass, topic sessions on Tuesdays, office hours on Thursdays. One of our favorite hosts, a guy named Zach, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, but it starts with a W, Woodkin, I think, is Youth Ministry Booster.
Workin'.
So this is Workin'. Okay. I was close.
You were very close.
Kind of still butchered it, which I apologize as someone whose last name is regularly butchered. So Zach's Youth Ministry Booster for youth ministers. It's a paid network. And on Mondays, he does new member announcements. Tuesdays, he uses those member spotlight stories, so that member profile story that we're going to also give you the template and guide for how to do those. So you're going to end today with a step-by-step guide for how to do a Give Ask Day, as well as these member profile stories. And we'll even give you another guide for what we'll talk about in a moment. Wednesdays is soul care and office hours. So again, that connection with other members, super, super powerful and important. Thursdays, new blog post, podcast, or article. So this is the content that he's already producing. It is going through the lens of monthly themes. And then Friday, a fun question or surveys that then he uses for those later articles that he then posts on Thursdays. So again, he's been doing this a while. He's got 5. You do not need 5 to be successful. You just need 2. Tiffany has also been going for a while, and she just has 3, and it's working great for her. So, as you can probably imagine, Part of this week's challenge is going to be creating your weekly calendar, but we'll come back to that in a bit. Let's move into what we're going to complement your weekly calendar with, which is daily actions or daily polls and questions. So your weekly calendar is about creating a habit so that your members know that on Tuesdays we do this, on Thursdays we do this, on Mondays we do this. That is the point of the weekly calendar, is to create a habit for you and your members. Because if it's not a habit for you and you blow yourself out in the first week because you do 7 days, but then you're too tired or life gets in the way the next week, you're not set up for those 4 weeks, you don't have a habit. And if you don't have a habit, your members certainly are not going to create a habit. So your weekly calendar is about creating a habit so that every Tuesday somebody pulls open their phone and they know that this is happening in the community with consistency. The last component of community design are daily actions, and they have a different purpose. Some overlap. So you're going to hear some things where you're like, wait, what's the difference between the weekly calendar and daily actions? But here's the main thing to pay attention to. Daily actions are about making connections between your members. And the place to start is with polls and questions. So if your weekly calendar is about creating a habit, creating consistency, you are punctuating that with your daily actions. And if you want them to be frequent actions, that's okay too. There's no reason though, you're not going to overwhelm anyone by having awesome questions that you post in your community every day, at least for, let's call it the first 2 months or even the first month. So there are in your Mighty Network, 3 different kinds of polls plus questions. So over here on the left is your question, I guess. I don't know. Over here, the white thing over here is your question. You can totally post questions. They are actually less effective than the 3 kinds of polls that you are also looking at. So if you ever have an opportunity to post a question as a multiple choice poll, post it as a multiple choice poll. And then in the this is something Audra Lindsay, one of our senior community designers came up with, and it totally works, which is in a multiple choice poll for the last choice, write other, add your answer in the comments. That thing works incredibly well at driving engagement, meaning people answer the poll and then add to the comments. So whenever you can do a multiple choice poll, really, really effective. The 2 other kinds of polls that you have in your Mighty Network is what is called a hot or cold poll. It has positive and negative, and it's about how you feel about something. So how do you feel about going into business with friends or family members? Negative, positive. Now, some people have asked, can you change it from negative to positive? So it's not yet. We will eventually think about that. But so are you negative? Are you positive for a particular feeling-based question? And then the last kind of poll that you have in your Mighty Network is what we call a percentage poll. And this is really kind of fun because it's really great for time, percentage of your time, percentage of your resources, percentage of your energy. And then what it does is it compares your percentage to the percentage average of the community. So the reason we built this out was because, so many communities are built for people who are somewhat isolated in their own world. And so you kind of ask your question of like, is anyone else spending money on social media ads? Or, hey, is anyone else, spending like 3 hours a day, like lost in I was going to use social media again, but like you can use these as a way to stay consistent or just kind of compare yourself to the community in good ways, in constructive ways. So questions, multiple choice poll, hot or cold poll, percentage poll. Those are options for polls and questions. Now, in terms of what you're going to want to do with your daily polls and questions, you're going to want to enable members to build relationships with them. That's the whole point. So you can imagine in a multiple choice poll, you can quickly see where you and the rest of the members of the community compare, and then have that conversation below. It's a really effective way to not only get members to contribute very quickly, but to add a lot of value quickly with that contribution. It gives your members a great way to contribute. It harnesses their stories and experiences, and it gives you another way to try stuff. And so the thing with daily polls and questions, so with your weekly calendar, you're going to want to notify all. That's a feature where it's like you hit the notify all after you post, and it goes out to everybody. For daily polls and questions, you can post a daily poll or question without notifying all. And so maybe you want to notify all of one of your daily polls and questions in the period of week, and that would be 3 notify alls that you would send out. That's great. The rule is typically you don't want to send out more than 1 notify all per day. But if you want to send out 4 or 5 a week, fantastic. And so you can do that with your weekly calendar and complement that with daily polls and questions that you just notify all of a subset for them. So you're still posting them in the community. You're just not, you're not notifying all. People come back, they see a bunch of great conversations with your daily polls and questions that are complementing your weekly calendar, all in the context of your monthly theme. And you have got a machine to drive engagement, to drive people making connections, and people building a habit of coming back to your community, or at least knowing about it in their notifications. So coming back to the specifics, if we just sort of roll up our proverbial sleeves here and talk about how to craft a great poll or question, that is the last guide that you are going to get from us this week, because we want this to be super simple for you. Great way to make it simple for you, be specific. So instead of questions like, how do you get subscribers? Be more specific. As a new podcaster, what is the #1 tried and true tactic for getting new subscribers on social media? Much easier for people to answer, which is why you want to be specific, because the goal is to ask questions that can be answered in less than 15 seconds. So you don't want somebody to be like, oh, that's going to take a lot of thought. I'll come back to that later today, because we've all done that. And then we never come back to it later in the day. You want to grab people's attention, get them engaged, then they'll see other people's answers. And that loop is how you actually get people back and contributing and getting closer and building connections with each other. So ask questions that people can answer, given their own experience, their own ideas. Really easy to do once you kind of just make that shift. That, for example, adding a constraint is really effective. Adding a constraint like time, a word limit, or a fill in the blank option. I'll give you an example. What's the one thing you tried today to get your next subscriber? Did it work? What's the first word you want your subscribers to think of when they see your brand, or your members, for example? When it comes to networking, the #1 app I use the most is these kinds of fill in the blanks are really effective in terms of getting people to contribute. And that's the whole point of daily polls and questions. A few of our favorite polls and questions, again, just in the same way that you started generating fantastic monthly themes once you got yourself in brainstorming mode, the same thing is going to be true for polls and questions. So what do you want to get from a community of peers? That is our icebreaker question. We built it into the product that you can, of course, edit and add your own. But why did we do that? Because it works and is really fun and interesting. So it's one of the most, one of the best questions, because everybody shows up in ways that sometimes are really general or abstract, but sometimes you learn something super cool about your members, and it's an ongoing inspiration engine, at least from our own experience. What's your one-word theme for 2020? When we wrote that at the beginning of 2020, we did not think that our one-word themes would take such a turn as they have since taken as of June of 2020. If you could wave a magic wand and add 1 extra hour to your day, what would you do with it? Actually, I'm going to think about that later today. What percentage of your day do you spend on getting organized or reviewing your goals? That's a percentage poll. How do you feel about work-life balance? Is it a myth or attainable? That would be negative for myth, positive for attainable in a hot cold poll. What's your number one trick for letting go of negative feedback? That's a really good question. I don't actually know yet. What's the biggest obstacle keeping you from following through on a goal? And this, you can imagine a multiple choice: time management, external accountability, maintaining momentum, or, as we've already talked about, other. Tell us in the comments. So these are just a few of these questions that you can take and make your own. You're going to, again, have a great guide to it. And so with that, let me offer your second part of this week's challenge, which is to brainstorm your first 15 polls and questions. I've seen people at this moment basically be like, wait a second, does this mean I have to have a poll? I have to have like 30 polls and questions every month. And if you are feeling like you are spinning out of control thinking about that, pull it back. You've got this. You're going to take those monthly themes that you've laid out last week, and you're going to simply come up with 5 polls and questions. You're going to pull it from this PDF that we have created and given you great questions that you can start with. You're going to, once you're in this brainstorming mode, you're going to come up with 4 more, and then 5 more, and then maybe 10. But you're going to brainstorm them. You're going to put them all down. You're going to do that work in sort of a really constructive way, and then you're going to leave them alone and come back to them as needed. And that's going to be daily polls and questions. Now, we got our monthly themes, we got our weekly calendar, we got our daily polls and questions. Feeling pretty good. We're going to pull it all together now, and we're going to create a 90-day plan. What's the magic of your 90-day plan? You're going to write it down. I cannot tell you how important writing your plan down is to your ultimate success. It's pretty easy to do and will increase the probability of your success in building a community so valuable you can charge for it and so well designed that it essentially runs itself. Why can I say that with such confidence? Because it works. A lot of research backs me up on this, but here's the specific situation. You write it down right now because you have some time. You got your favorite beverage, whether it's a morning beverage, evening beverage, or just water because it's hydrating and good for you. So you write it all down. Life gets in the way. Somebody in your family gets sick. You get busy with work. You get a project that lands on your desk, and you're like, wait a second, I was like building all this stuff out. And you come back to it a week later after you finish that project, or your family member gets healthy again, you get back from that vacation, and you have a piece of paper, you have something written down, and here's the emotion you will feel. That's right. I wrote all of it down. I'm not starting from scratch. I've got this covered. This is all based in a system that works, and I can start at any time. That's powerful. And it all happens because you wrote it down and you started simple and you didn't get sort of overwhelmed or trying to figure out how all these different pieces fit together. You just wrote down something simple. And here's the magic of it when you do it. Not only are you more likely at that point to be like, oh, I've got this. I wrote it down. I've got a great plan. Let me go and execute it. I'm curious to see how it works. Because you wrote it down and you started simple and you had these elements to it that all complement and reinforce each other, you also give yourself the ability to free your brain up to try stuff and be curious and reframe problems into mysteries to be solved. And you may be asking yourself at this point, like, why is she like emphasizing this writing down thing? It's like, I got it. Like, it's fine. Because it works. And I want you to be successful. That is what I wake up thinking about every day. And I know my team does as well. We are here to help you become successful because people need the community that you are building in the world right now. I guarantee it. I know what your guys' big purposes are, and they're awesome. So writing this down really does matter. And it's pretty simple because you've already done all of the pieces. So your 90-day plan is very simple. You're going to write down your big purpose, your first 3 months of themes, your weekly calendar, and your first 15 polls and questions. That's it. Keeping it really simple so that when you do come back and look at it, you're like, oh, I've got this. And then it lets you stay in the present with your community. It helps you think about those things that Hugo, a little while ago, you were like, okay, I got to do all this stuff. You get this done first. And then you've got the guts of your community, which sounded grosser than I meant it to. You've got the inner workings and dynamics of your community all ready to go, all ready to self-organize. And because of your big purpose, because of your weekly calendar, because of your monthly themes, and because of your daily actions, you've created something that you can charge for, because this will get people results and transformation. And people pay for results and transformation. In fact, they're more likely to get results and transformation if they pay, because people pay attention to what they pay for. So just to give an example, because we are all now familiar with community design, what our 90-day plan could look like or does look like. Big purpose, we bring together coaches and entrepreneurs to create a community so valuable you can charge for it, so that we can each bring our expertise and ideas to more people and help our members transform their lives. Month 1, pricing and bundling. Month 2, community and podcasts. Month 3, community and authors. A weekly calendar. I've now made this point multiple times. One could even say I've been repetitive in this, of Tuesday, 9 a.m., topic sessions, Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 4 to 5 for office hours. By the way, you do not need to do 2 office hours. We've done them because we get a lot of people from the Southern Hemisphere. You just need to do 1 and you're fine. And then daily polls and questions. We also started to play with new ideas because we had already been through daily polls and questions. Daily polls and questions are a place to start. You can also add on top of it, imagine, 1 risk a day. So what's your risk going to be today? Or here's today's risk, or here's, the idea of competitive failing. What's the one thing you're going to do that you're likely to fail at, but you're going to do it and we're going to celebrate it together? Martinez Evans of the Slow AF Run Club and a graduate of the Community Design Masterclass came up with something which is the daily gratitude. So in his community, what they do, he's actually set it up so it's scheduled in advance, and every day there's just a prompt. What is your gratitude today? And it's really powerful and it really works well. 1 action to build a 30-day habit, 1 step towards your launch. So you now have a 90-day plan. If you are a living, breathing human being, you might also have a moment where you're like, okay, great, but what if it doesn't work? What if nobody shows up? What if anybody's too busy right now to be a part of this? Or, just am I going to spam people? I feel like I'm about to spam people. All of these things are potentially going through your mind. In fact, actually, raise your hand if you are having any of those doubts or concerns or kind of moments of fear of is anyone going to do this? And is anybody going to show up? And thank you, Michelle Altug. I don't think I said that right. Hugo, yes. And here's what I want to reinforce. Stephanie, Sean, thank you guys for sharing, because you're not alone. Most people, unless, actually, I haven't met somebody who hasn't had that fear, at least for a fleeting moment. Diana, Sylvia, Stephanie, thank you guys. And here's what I want to stress. This is just about detective work. If something doesn't work right out of the gate, It's okay. And here's why. There's probably a pretty good reason that's not people are too busy. It tends to actually have something more to do with clarity of your big purpose, which is why we work so hard on those. It can be about some of these questions. Is the transformation I'm promising clear enough? Sometimes it's not. A lot of times it's not. So you just have to go back and refine that. Instead of being fearful, you can basically say, you know what, I'm gonna harness this fear that I have right now, and I'm gonna do another ideal member interview. I'm gonna take time because I'm gonna listen for what is happening there. I wish I had done that so many times when instead I was like, I guess that was a good run. I guess we failed. And, woke up then at 3 o'clock in the morning being like, wow, this just isn't going to work. I'm a failure. It's not really that productive to do that. And also imagine instead you take even just that kernel of fear and you channel it into something a lot more productive, like another ideal member interview, because then you can actually see, is my transformation or the results I'm promising clear enough? Am I using their language that I am hearing? Have I niched down enough? Like, this is, again, just because your big purpose could apply to everyone does not mean it should upfront. You are looking for a specific enough ideal member so that when the world is whizzing by and they're looking at their feed and, doing a zillion other things or getting into their inbox, you stand out because they're like, oh, wait, that's me. People don't have that reaction when you're like, individuals and organizations who would like to have more success. No one sees themselves in that, but they do see themselves in we bring together travelers who love beach vacations, or female travelers who love beach vacations, or 20-something women who love beach vacations and like are ready to hop on a plane in 2021 to be able to go to that beach vacation. Now you've got me. Maybe that was a little specific. As somebody who would like to go on a beach vacation and is thinking about Diana, who I hope will show up in office hours with the backdrop of a beach vacation, because it's really been something I've been living vicariously with over the last few weeks. And then lastly, am I clear on my member needs? If you are staying too high level and you haven't niched down enough, the probability that you have captured what somebody is looking for right now is low. More than that, just because your existing members are not engaging does not mean that there is not an ideal member profile out there who needs your community more. So you may not have the right members, and that's okay. That's okay. So continuing to get more specific in your big purpose, really getting and refining who your ideal member is, and that may change, and what they need from the community in order to master that important topic to them, achieve the results and transformation that they want to achieve. That's what we're doing here. And so think about, instead of, oh, I guess everybody is too busy for my community, tackling these different levers that you've got to improve and refine and really find your fit between your big purpose, your story, and your ideal member, and then engage people with monthly themes, a weekly calendar to build the habit, and daily polls and questions to build relationships between members such that they can achieve results and transformation over the course of a year in your community, and longer and shorter. But just, again, that's a nice way to think about your year in the life. So with that, this week's challenge, in a shocking turn of events, is going to be about setting up your weekly calendar, articulating your first 15 daily polls and questions, and filling out your 90-day plan. So what do you guys think? Can I get some hands raised? If you're on the replay, I want you even just to raise your hand right there. I just made that up. It's pretty dorky, but I'm going with it because this is going to be awesome. This is going to be your 90-day plan is going to be how you create something that you don't have to think a lot about so that you can use your brain and your energy for your ideal member interview, for finding those ideal members, for building on top of this, what you want to charge and how you want to structure all the stuff we're going to cover next week, and going and getting more members with a launch or with growth as a practice. So hopefully you all see how easy this is. It's super easy. It just requires you to write it down and follow and trust the process. We got guides, we got PDFs, we got people, we got us, all these things to support you. And I'm loving what I am seeing. So this is awesome. This is awesome, awesome, awesome. Hema, Tina, Cindy, Annalisa, Tess, Diana, Zitera, beautiful name. Kevin, Kristen. Kristen, yes, we will be going into growth as a practice. That is for week 5. Hugo, Mike, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is going to be awesome. Let's get to some questions because you have them, and therefore we want to answer them. And with that, I'm bringing Jess back. I'm shifting my own beverages from a morning coffee situation to more of a hydrating water situation.
Great. And I've seen a few questions come up in the chat that didn't get posted as questions, and I've moved them over to the chat. So if you were somebody who asked a question in chat, take a look and see if I've moved your question over. So with that, Gina, let's start with this question that a few folks had. What about when your community is mainly around online courses? So we are asking our course instructors to have weekly tasks, event posts over the 6-week length of our course.
Well, one, I think that's great. Here's what I would say. These are complementary. Think about community design and these elements as being sort of the core elements. But as you can see with a program or with a course, and we'll get into more of this next week, they're very complementary. So we're running a course right now. You guys are in a program, but we're taking advantage of a weekly calendar by keeping things really consistent. So you can blend these concepts between community design and running a course. The thing I would say about like the weekly challenge or weekly action, you can see it even here. You may want to think about shifting the title from task, because you can see how quickly people are like, oh my gosh, I'm behind. Everybody has so much to do. Like, it's up to all of us to really find the ways to say, hey, this challenge will get you a weekly result that you can build on week in, week out. So just an initial reaction to what I just heard. But what you want to really think about as it relates to, apparently me futzing with my hair, what you really want to think about is utilizing a community design plan to continue the engagement of your program, which is just more sequential, whereas community design is meant to be a little bit broader.
Great. Okay, so this one's coming up a lot, and I see folks in the chat, and it's the whole question of paid free. Okay. So would you limit this weekly calendar activity to your paid groups and courses, not your free community? How many of the activities do you do in the paid area versus the free area? Like, look at all the awesome things that have been going on in our paid group this week. How do you handle that?
Yes. Very simple. Very simple. You're going to invest in your paid community. You're going to have a full community design plan for your paid community. And for your free network, so if you have a free Mighty Network with a paid group within it, you're going to have an awesome community design plan for your paid network. And then you're going to tease out 1 or 2 pieces into your free network. You invest your time and energy in the paid community, and you just simply tease out for your free. Why do I say that? Because your free is not paying. 1. 2, because when you're investing more heavily in your paid, it's easier to drop something into your free network. So for example, it's easy for us to drop in one of our PDFs that we've created for community design and the community design masterclass into Mighty Hosts or into the Mighty checklist for free, because it helps people see the value of the paid community, or in our case, a paid course. You can use it in either way. I didn't come up with this. It's the concept of the lead magnet that shows people the value of your paid community, and it works. It also helps you spend less time thinking that you have to have separate community design plans for your paid community and your free community. And inevitably, there is somebody on this call, there is somebody somewhere that is thinking that that's what you have to do. It is not what you have to do. It's not what you have to do. What you have to do is make something super awesome that's paid and just tease out a couple things for your free network. That's it. It's that simple. You don't have to overthink it. So that would be my recommendation.
And Ani's asking, is it easy to put an upsell within a free group?
Yes. So it can be your resources. It can be, again, it can be a PDF. It could be a lead magnet you've created. It can be any number of things. It could be polls. You can imagine using a poll for your free network. That's one of the things that then basically says, and if you answer these questions this way, you might want our paid community or our subscription or our VIP or our course. So that's the way to kind of think about that. Your free community is only there to bring more people into your paid community, and your paid community is there to fund bringing more people into your free network or your free community to, in all cases, achieve results and transformation. In all cases, to participate in your big purpose. And if you don't have a paid community, great. Use your free community and use the Community Design Masterclass structure for community design in that free community. But what I don't want you to do is to create more work for yourself, because here's what happens. If you overthink this, if you create too much complexity, it was so complex I could barely say it. Create complexity, you won't do it. You will not continue with this. And people that need your community and need your big purpose won't have access to it, which is why I feel so strongly about making sure that you're not creating extra work for yourself, as somebody who always creates extra work for myself. So that's the way you want to think about this. You're going to make a paid community awesome, tease out for the free, and move people from free to paid. Even if it's a small percentage, it allows you to fund the whole thing and really create something that's more and more valuable for more and more people.
Great. A couple more questions related to the daily polls and questions. What if members get overwhelmed with the daily polls and questions? Some people are concerned that that will cause people to turn notifications off.
Okay, so first and foremost, here's how you want to think about notifications. There is always a subset of people, a small subset of people, who hate all notifications and are really vocal about it. That is not the majority of people. How do I know this? Because we regularly talk to hosts who are like, oh my gosh, my people hate notifications. So then we're like, okay, let's go look at the data. We go and look at the data. People do not hate notifications. If anything, if you want people to come back to your network, you need notifications. And, how do we all use LinkedIn today? Because they sent us a lot of notifications. We may not like them in LinkedIn's case, but we all use them and we all were a part of them. So the data does not support that person who does not like notifications being the majority of people. Full stop. If it was different, we would make changes. Second, you are not notifying them every single time you post a poll or question. You're going to have the daily polls and questions in your network, so it's not going to be overwhelming. Then what you're going to do is notify people, maybe a max of 4 times a week. 2 with your weekly calendar, 2 with the poll or question for that day that is on the opposite days of your weekly calendar. 4 notifications will not overwhelm people, especially if they're valuable, especially if they are the right ideal member, and especially if that ideal member is motivated by your big purpose and you are clear in the results and transformation that you want to generate for people. The problem is that that one person sticks in your brain, especially if you're a little bit nervous, especially if you are afraid that you're spamming people going into it. You will not spam people by notifying them, call it 3 times a week, 4 times a week. It's just not that much. And you want to create something that people actually go to. And that's really, really important. So hopefully that is a compelling, data-driven argument for trust the process, send notify all 3 to 4 times a week, utilize your polls and questions in your network, and just choose to notify all for a subset of them. And if we need to continue the conversation around like that one person who shows up and they're like, you stop spamming me. Like, the data is really clear that you actually need to continue to send notifications, and that person should opt out, and they have the ability to opt out. And so that's really, really important. And I wish it were different, but it's not. Actually, I don't wish it was different. I wish it was different, that there wasn't this disconnect between that one person who's overly and appropriately sensitive to notifications opting out, and you and any of us feeling like it's every member that is in our community.
So Gina, just to clarify, does that mean 7 polls and questions per week, 365 days a year?
So no, it does not mean 365 days a year. It means right now you're going to start with 15 polls and questions. And you are going to be able to utilize something, for example, over time, where you can set up your polls and questions in advance. You can set up a daily gratitude, that example that we gave earlier. But all you're going to do right now is you're going to set up in your first 90 days, 15 polls and questions for your first month, a weekly calendar, monthly themes, your year in the life, and your big purpose.
Great. We have time for a couple more?
Sure.
Okay. So I want to do, just going back to topics. This question came up earlier, so monthly themes. And Megan wanted to know, she said, we have so many big topics that we could do a year and a half, and wants to know if the idea that we'll repeat these topics every 12 months, or, you know, do we have to limit to a year?
You do not have to limit it to a year. The fact that you have a year and a half is fantastic. Most people have the opposite problem before they get started, which is why we in the same way that constraining a question that we just talked about earlier is a great way of getting people to act, getting people to contribute. That's the only reason we're like, choose a year in the life. It's enough time to sort of think about it, and 12 monthly themes is generally reasonable for anybody to get to. But please, if you have a year and a half, you can repeat them. You don't have to repeat them. Your community is evolving, and it's mastering that important or interesting topic together on the way to members' results and transformation, and results and transformation for you as well. And in that context, you can do anything you want that you believe are monthly themes that are going to help people achieve those results and transformation. That's the important thing.
Great. Going back to polls and questions, Desmond wants to know, do the daily polls and questions repeat?
I wouldn't repeat them every day, but yes. So just think about it as there's going to be fresh members coming in. People's answers may change over time. And that's actually one of the really fun things to do. So it's a little bit in the same way of give and ask. So as you have a give and ask, the reason you can do that every week is that people's gives and their asks are going to be ever evolving. They're going to be living and breathing things, which is what makes it so much fun, which is why communities are awesome. That was my commercial for communities.
Yeah. And Erin, themes, how are they presented in a community as topics? Yes. Often people post their themes as topics. You don't have to do that, but it's definitely one way to keep it organized if you choose. And Megan, is there somewhere we can see who answered the poll and what their answers were? I can't find that. Not today. That is something that we will offer in the future. So
we have heard that. We want that. When we created polls and questions and these polls and questions, we wanted to actually do something where people were, I don't want to say protected, but it was definitely a conscious choice to say letting people make those contributions without necessarily being personally identified even to the host.
Yeah. I put a quick promo for tomorrow's live interview in the chat. So if you can join us tomorrow at noon, we've got a great live interview with hosts Gary Van Warmerdam and Eva Baronius, who are the hosts of the Self-Mastery Community. That should be awesome. So I hope I'm going to see a group of you there live. Please click through an RSVP to make sure that you get reminded of that. And let's see, I want to take one last question, Gina, if we can, from Kia.
Sure.
And this is related to the ideal member interviews, and she's been struggling a little bit because she's reached out to a bunch of women that she knows or she believes are her ideal members, but they're saying, I'm so busy, I can't even pencil it in, and it's deflating for her. And so any thoughts on, and Jan had a great idea, maybe offering something on the call that makes it valuable for them, like offering to brainstorm ideas for one of their challenges, but curious what other ideas you might have, Gina, for how she can get these folks on the phone.
Yeah, so that's a really good indication that your big purpose may not be even in the realm of compelling. So again, a way to reframe this, because I understand why it's demoralizing. Like, nobody likes to hear no. I especially do not like to hear no. But I think it's true for all of us. So here's the mental framing that has really helped me, which is you're looking for fit. So when someone tells you no, they're essentially telling you that whatever you have presented them with is not a fit for what they think is valuable or important to them right now. So if you essentially have two options at that point, you can either find a new person, which is what I probably recommend doing, find a new person, or if you even go out and talk to 5 more people and they are like not even interested in getting on the phone with you, something's wrong over here. Something's wrong with your ask. And so it's about finding the fit between your big purpose or your topic and the clarity of your topic and the right ideal member. So if you can't get people on the phone, one of those two things is the problem. And so what I would encourage you to do is, one, post in the masterclass and tag us, although I'm not going to be in the masterclass till this weekend, but tag us so that we can understand kind of what your ask is, what your pitch is to these folks. And then the other thing I want you to do in the same post is talk about who you think your ideal member is and the people that you reached out to who said that you were too busy. And I want you to come up with 3 more potential ideal members. So given your big purpose, who else could it apply to? Could it apply to, folks that are going to be less busy? And what does that even look like or mean? And so when you do that, you can take that energy that is like what you hear. They're not saying it, but what you're hearing is they're too busy for me. And that hurts. So we have to depersonalize it and focus it more in as like, I am putting the pieces of a puzzle together. And when you can do that and depersonalize it, and we're here to help, get to that, get to the bottom of that puzzle and find the solution. That really goes a long way in what's possible and what you can do. I think we are done.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys all for being here this morning. For those watching the replay, you you've got a special place in my heart, because you're not here enjoying all of this awesomeness, and yet you're still watching this at this moment or listening to it at this moment. For that, I say thank you. Have a great rest of your week. We will see you in the host interview tomorrow. We will see you in office hours on Thursday and every other Thursday, to reinforce the point of the weekly calendar. And we cannot wait to see your 90-day plan. And with that, thank you guys, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. And I'll have those materials up within the next couple of hours. So keep an eye out for them. I'll be notifying all of you that they are available. All right. Have a great rest of your day.